This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn, Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
The civilian population on Ground Zero finds itself between the proverbial rock and a hard place. This is Willibrod Ade.
It is easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of President Paul Biya's pathological lies. Tata Benton for Ambazonia Calling.
21-gun salute of General Andrew Simbangoe, the bravest of hearts. Innocentia, Ambazonia Calling.
Luigi Di Maio, Italy's deputy prime minister, called on the European Union to impose sanctions on France for its policies in Africa. This is the monk.
Every effort must still be made to remain freedom fighters. This is Sia Jimbo Ambe.
And non-violent approaches may take time. It trumps all other approaches as the most certain path to recognition. This is Jude Agua Ozugen from Ambazonia Calling.
The lack of media and international attention to non-violent campaigners eventually pushes campaigners into thinking they need violence to make their point. This is Divine Angie.
Ambazonians, we only need 3.5% of you to be involved in the non-violent campaigns for us to succeed. This is Tanya Ezeme.
That does not obviously mean giving up the right to self-defense. This is Ayuk Nelson Ayuk.
In the case of Paul Biya, he seems keen to prove that he is, indeed, the Hitler of Africa. This is Anne Berenroy.
The place for Africans is Africa, not at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, where so many of them drown. This is Elizabeth Etta Bisson from Rome.
Hello and welcome again. We've got a jam-packed program ahead of us this Sunday. We'll get started right away, but just to give you a little hint, we will touch on the crisis that's unfolding in neighboring La République du Cameroon, revisiting our series on nonviolence, and you've got, of course, your long lineup of commentaries, the very best of analysis from our team here at Ambazonia Calling. We begin straight away with our editorial. It comes from Willibrod Ade.
Man is born free, but he is everywhere in chains, is the opening sentence of French revolutionary thinker Jean-Jacques Rousseau's The Social Contract. Even though it was written in 1762, the thrust of Rousseau's philosophy is still very much in play today, particularly in Ambazonia. The freedom and happiness that man is endowed with, as explained by Rousseau, has been destroyed by what he calls the right of the strongest, where a reign of inequality destroys man's original state of happiness and freedom. This seems to be the current situation of Ambazonians, particularly those on Ground Zero. From kidnappings for ransom, extortion, and the arbitrary extension of ghost towns by Amber Boys, to the militarization, curfews, and restrictions imposed by the colonial administration, the civilian population on Ground Zero finds itself between the proverbial rock and a hard place. The hardship, death, and terror visited upon our people by the colonizer has for some time now been compounded by the irrational, irresponsible, and essentially cruel edicts and injunctions of the restoration forces. The latest declaration of a 2-week-long ghost town in February is just one in a series of ill-advised, ill-conceived, counterproductive, and pointless moves that exposes the cavalier disposition that those who claim to be in control of Ground Zero have vis-a-vis this revolution and the very high price that our people are paying. We have practically tied ourselves up in chains that may even be harder to break than the ones the colonizers have had us in for 57 years. How else can one explain such actions that only serve to alienate the very people who are supposed to be the ultimate beneficiaries of these decisions? Did the people behind such a decision actually think about the plight of our people, the needless deaths and misery our already battered masses are going to suffer because of this? Did they bother to assess the kind of damage this can do to this revolution? What message can such a long ghost town send that a one-day-a-week ghost town cannot? How does preventing our people from opening their businesses, moving freely or going about their affairs freely because of a ban hurt La République or advance our cause? Let me say this. We cannot free Ambazonia or claim to want to do so by increasing the pain and suffering of the people who live there. It is sad to see that ghost towns have become a tool to manipulate Ambazonians in a high-stakes game of political posturing that most of the restoration groups in the diaspora have been engaged in since the third conclave that gave birth to the SCACUF Governing Council. When combined with all the other exactions our people experience daily at the hands of the marauding Cameroonese soldiers, such decisions can cause them to develop the Stockholm Syndrome that will see them preferring the pre-revolutionary period, which right now is beginning to look like paradise when compared to what they are being subjected to by the people who promise to take them to a better place called Ambazonia. If that happens, the masses will turn against the restoration forces and start collaborating with the colonizer to take out the Amber Boys in order to put an end to their suffering. What a tragedy that will be. God forbid. This is Willibrod Ade for Ambazonia Calling.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner of the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until you have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling. This week again, Ambazonia lost one of its finest. General Andrew Ngoy of Sokodev was killed by La République terrorist forces. Our deepest condolences to Sokodev, to the people of Ambazonia, and especially to Andrew Ngoy's widow and orphan children. Innocent Chair has got the first part of our news wrap-up for the week. It includes a tribute to General Ngoy.
They got hype of Pondo Ballon. The French military follow the civilians, they kill them. I don't know how it don't be for the government. The government, they fight their own civilians, they soon how. Now 10 innocent soldiers with military, look at kill them, the French military.
12 young, innocent and unarmed Ambazonians, mostly teenage boys, were shot and killed Friday by the marauding genocidal terrorist forces of La République du Cameroun in Muyuka, southern zone of Ambazonia.
We happened for Pondo Ballon on the 24th of January, Friday, 2019, 8 o'clock at the dot.
With a shocking viewer discretion feed on social media displayed blown off heads with gouging wounds from which brain matter had fallen out. Sources say 4 out of the 12 men were immediately buried in a mass grave by the local population.
This one a massive barrier where La République can kill innocent civilians.
A recent pattern has been reported of random arrests and kidnappings of Ambazonian youths residing in border towns and villages of La République du Cameroun. Cameroonese genocidal forces reportedly rounded up over a score of Ambazonians between the ages of 14 and 27 last Wednesday in Kongsamba, accusing them of being secessionists. Their whereabouts are unknown. Experts in such conflicts who are observing events unfold between La République du Cameroon and Ambazonia are recommending that if Ambazonians must move out of their communities, it should be to urban centers like Bamenda, Kumba, Boya, Limbe, and other major cosmopolitan areas, but definitely not across the Mungo because of what is happening now and what will unfold as the kitchen gets hotter in La République du Cameroon when the regime will get more desperate. Credible sources say an invading platoon of La République du Cameroon terrorist forces lost as many as 6 soldiers Friday and retreated in an ambush meticulously set up by the 7 Katars of Bafut. Reports say the genocidal forces attempted to enter Bafut northern zone of Ambazonia via the Agiati Market Square, but a B military vehicle was blown up, reportedly killing 6 Bs. No casualties have been reported by the 7 Katars. Sukadev. Ambazonians joined the family of Sukadev. Attention! Yes! Southern Cameroon's Defense Forces of Superior Commander Dr. Ebenezer Akwanga Thursday in a 21-gun salute of General Andrew Simbangoe, who was killed Thursday by the forces of La République du Cameroon.
Many people know me, but some don't know me. My name is Andrew Ngoe, Brigadier General Andrew Ngoe of the Southern Cameroon Defense Force, Sukadev. I would like me to send all small people in the front. Information say make our people careful. Now because we know I make something happen with them. We not be prepared for war. We not be prepared for fight. We be get our way of one handle them. But they declare war on us, bring a right inside our homes. So we not go stand and fold our hands. They kill our mommy them, they kill our papa them, and they kill our pikin them. The general is going in for a spiritual donation.
In an exchange with Dr. Ebenezer Akwanga, he not only called General Andrew Simbangoe his son, he qualified him as the bravest of hearts. And your children shall be like the stars above. The most I can read the one come of this nation. Sources report the killing of a medical doctor late Friday by the genocidal forces of Cameroon. A social media post on the killing alleges that the military wrapped up the deceased in a military jacket to give the impression that the medical doctor was a fighter. A story that was immediately debunked by pictures that the surviving sister posted of the doctor shortly before he left the house to his demise. You are listening to Ambazonia Calling, your space for educated news analysis, informed opinions and commentary towards the recognition of a free, independent Ambazonia. I am Innocent Chair. Stay with us.
Restoration train is going to the mountains. Restoration train is going to Bamenda. Restoration train is going on to Boya on the restoration journey of our liberty. Restoration train is moving very steadily. Restoration train is hooting very loudly. Restoration train to carry everybody on the restoration journey of our liberty.
Innocent is not allowed to go anywhere as we're going straight away to the second part of a news wrap-up for the week.
Barrister Michel Ndoki narrowly escaped death Saturday as Cameroonese forces of repression opened fire on demonstrators in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. Reports say she suffered 4 gunshot wounds with at least 2 on her right thigh.
Vous devez comprendre ce que nous sommes en train de faire. You guys need to understand what we are trying to do. We are trying to save our lives.
In one of several videos on social media, Barrister Ndoki is heard demanding that the medic give her the pellets because she will enter it into evidence. Celestin Jamin, another high-profile victim and former SDF official who crossed carpets to Maurice Kamto's party, equally suffered a gunshot wound to the thigh. The anti-Sardina demonstrators also took hostage of the Cameroon embassy in Paris. Professor Maurice Kamto addressed supporters, swearing that there is no turning back.
Ceux qui entretiennent la mort au nord-ouest ne doivent pas triompher. Ceux qui ont fait le hold-up électoral ne doivent pas triompher. Ceux qui se nourrissent du sang des Camerounais en volant des dizaines, des centaines de milliards à l'occasion de la nation ne doivent pas triompher. Nous avons le droit de dire non, la jeunesse camerounaise, nous les enfants. C'est pourquoi nous sommes debout. Nous aurions pu rester tranquilles, être avec eux, mais nous n'avons pas le droit de priver la jeunesse camerounaise d'un avenir. Nous sommes là, nous serons à côté de vous jusqu'au bout. Nous allons nous battre.
Meantime, the U.S. Embassy in Cameroon has issued a security warning. According to a January 26 statement, quote, the embassy is aware of ongoing protest activity in Yaoundé and Douala, with injuries reportedly inflicted by law enforcement officers, end quote. It cautions U.S. citizens to avoid large gatherings and demonstrations, as even peaceful demonstrations may quickly turn violent. To remain aware of your surroundings and keep a low profile, and always carry proof of legal presence in Cameroon, such as a U.S. passport with visa or a residency card. Since Cameroon does not recognize dual citizenship, U.S. citizens of Cameroonian descent should never attempt to use a Cameroonian passport or identification card. A glorious homecoming has been given to Onela Fomunyominka, the Sichon Catholic hospital nurse who was shot and killed by Biya genocidal forces January 18th. A sea of loving peers, all dressed in their white gowns and coats, not only gathered on the premises of the hospital where she worked, they carried protest signs about the sacred role of medical professionals in conflict zones and international commitments to protect them. One sign read, "The use of firearms around a hospital is unethical." A second read, "Attack on health workers and institutions is against medical neutrality rights." Yet another reminded that doctors and nurses are here to save lives. Another cried out that justice needs to be done, and the final one said, "Every life is of equal value." She was shot on her way to work and did not survive care at the Bansor Baptist Hospital. Free Ambazonians across the world joined Ambazonian prisoners of war in celebrating the transfer of some prisoners from the satanic hell of Sed in Yaoundé to Kondangi Central Prison. The 7 prisoners are part of a team of 9 Ambazonians who were abducted in Calabar, Nigeria by the Nigerian army in February 2018. Our sources confirmed that 2 of them had already been transferred to Kondangi Central. Several weeks ago, dejected agents of La République du Cameroun working at SED leaked to Ambazonia Calling about the conditions of several Ambazonians at the facility, of how they were beating them with machetes, using wires to beat them on their testicles, sleeping on wet razor-thin mattresses, no toiletries, no showers for weeks. We thank those agents who put their trust on Ambazonia Calling. Finally, in sports news, Young Sports Academy, the elite football team in Bamenda Northern Zone, was a no-show on the opening day of Colonial Cameroon's Professional Football League. Young Sports Academy joined Aiding Sports in demanding a General Assembly of the league prior to the start of the football season as contained in the league rules and regulations. Last-minute attempts by Cameroon's sports minister Narcisse Moelle Kombi on Friday to break deadlock failed after a similar failure by the new FAKO boss Mbombo Njoya to convince club presidents to accept General Semenge's decision for the season to begin without holding of a General Assembly. Innocentia, Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials. As we promised at the beginning of this program, we will now bring you a more in-depth story about the events unfolding in neighboring La République du Cameroun. Maurice Kamto had called for these demonstrations in his end-of-year speech last year.
I invite you to actively prepare for the popular success of the great citizen, Republican, and peaceful mobilization that will begin mid-January. It will be the marches for indignation, protest, and anger, both against the war in the northwest and southwest regions, to say, no, this war is not in our name, against the assassination of democracy by massive electoral fraud, clothe you in white, t-shirt, scarf, armband, in short, any white distinctive sign during this popular mobilization that will be the White March.
And that is how the White March held Saturday. On the ground in Douala, there was nothing white about the march. If anything, it was all bloody. Barrister Michel Ndoki and journalist Celestin Jamin were both shot on their legs or on their thighs, specifically because La République is going after Garine people, to use a terminology that some have used in Ambazonia. They absolutely wanted to inflict harm on their victims in places that will leave them alive, will mutilate them, exactly the same way that war crimes were committed in Liberia and Sierra Leone, when people asking for the right to vote were being told, do you prefer a short sleeve or a long sleeve? Meaning, do you prefer for your arm to be amputated at the level of your hand or at the level of your shoulder?
Le pays d'aime bien. Le pays d'aime bien, il veut tuer sa famille, il veut tuer ses frères. Un assassin. Un assassin. Assassin.
Forces of lawlessness and disorder, clearly not trained in crowd management, opened fire indiscriminately, sending crowds of people running through the streets. BF forces distinguished themselves Saturday by doing what they do best. They were cowards, they were savage, they were brutal. And yet, the peaceful protesters did not yield to the intimidation, to the provocation. They absolutely humiliated them with their courage and bravery. But nowhere was courage more demonstrated than in the person of Michel Ndoki, Barrister Michel Ndoki, who encouraged the crowds to come out and take protection from their numbers.
Si vous voulez que ça cesse, si vous voulez que ça n'arrive pas à d'autres que moi, il faut que vous soyez beaucoup plus nombreux. Quand moi, on m'a tiré dessus, les gens fuyaient et je comprends qu'ils fuient. Si on avait été des milliers, ils n'auraient pas eu besoin de fuir, ils n'auraient pas été étreints par la peur. Vous devez comprendre ce que nous sommes en train de faire. You guys need to understand what we are trying to do. We are trying to save our lives. Vous pouvez voir ce qui arrive à toute une Michel Ndoki soi-disant. Imaginez ceux qui n'ont pas de nom. Donc, rejoignez le combat, rejoignez le combat.
Professor Maurice Kamto, sporting a khaki jacket, led another part of the demonstration from another neighborhood of the city. By the time the day was over in Douala, Michelle Ndoki stood probably as tall as Rosa Parks, her name forever written in gold in the history of neighboring La République du Cameroun. Not only had she denied the regime a chance to take a seat away from her as a citizen, she had decided she would take bullets for it. And despite taking bullets, she lay through the pain, working on her cell phone, connecting with the crowds, connecting with her family. At least one person is believed to have been killed in Douala. Overnight, the crowds went from extremely frustrated to extremely angry and even violent, to the point that they set fire to the home of one superintendent of police. At the Poste Centrale, the main post office in the heart of the city, Yaoundé, the capital, peaceful protesters fought running battles with riot policemen who opened fire with live ammunition, with tear gas, and with water cannon.
Poste Centrale, à ce moment, Poste Centrale de Yaoundé, les militants du MRC qui courent gaz lacrymogène, eau et consorts. La Poste Centrale inondée de gaz lacrymogène. La Poste Centrale inondée de gaz lacrymogène. De policiers, de gendarmes.
Hoping for some level of protection, protesters chanted the anthem of the colonial regime. They broke out in the song Liberté by Anne-Marie Nzier. In ministerial departments locked securely behind closed doors and looking out of the windows, panic-stricken apparatchiks of the regime wrote up communiques full of lies. By the time Paul Atanganji and the new Minister of Lies came before the press to brief them on what had happened, all the lies had been properly hashed, indicating in one of them that no live ammunition had been used, and there was nothing more to be offered except threats of banning Maurice Kamto's MRC party for rebellion, for terrorism, for gangsterism, exactly what the regime should ban itself for. That did not stop what was a festive mood for demonstrators who had taken over the embassy of colonial Cameroon in Paris. Brought down effigies of colonial President Biya. Across Europe, at least 3 other countries were seeing the same kind of agitation outside the embassies of La République du Cameroun. That includes the embassy in Germany, which was under siege, and the embassy in Brussels, Belgium, which was equally under siege. Thus was the day, a first in the first month in a long line of protests that Maurice Kamto says will hold once every month.
This thing will go on for 50 and 100 years. You cannot kill everybody. And even if you kill everybody, the stones would avenge for the blood that spills on them. The soil will get up and start fighting.
You have plenty of show yet to come, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
The people of West Cameroon cannot be your slaves. The people of West Cameroon are not, you did not conquer them in war. The problem we have in West Cameroon is the problem that will bring down Cameroon. When people have had pent-up anger and pain, humiliation for over 50 years. When it bursts out, you will never be able to control it.
They will sooner realize that the people of Ambazonia will not surrender. They will sooner realize that you can arrest and kill, but the more you arrest and kill, the more you energize the people's spirit.
Before Ambazonians knew it, some 245 franc lawyers were chasing them around, dragging them before jurisdictions in courts that they hope would function the same way as La République du Cameroun. The big definition they want to get is who is a terrorist and who is a freedom fighter. It is a question that we posed to Barrister C. Ajimvambe.
Ambazonians are very familiar with the phrase, one man's terrorist is another's freedom fighter. In fact, we throw it around and use it emphatically at the slightest insinuation that Ambazonians fighting for the liberation of the homeland are terrorists. When countered with any additional charges of terrorism, we beef up our emphasis with the right to self-defense, reminding the accuser that such a right is indelibly enshrined in international law. However, the fundamental questions are, who is a terrorist and who is a freedom fighter? Especially in the eyes of the international community and stakeholders that we hope to win over as allies, that we hope to create necessary alliances and coalitions with. When does an act go beyond the scope of legally permissible self-defense to a wanton act of violence, war crime, or crime against humanity? By their most basic and common definitions, a terrorist is someone who uses fear to motivate civilians to act in a political manner on their behalf, whereas a freedom fighter is someone who acts on behalf of a civilian population in direct opposition to a military or government. Whether one is perceived as a terrorist or freedom fighter depends largely on who is perceiving and what their interest might be in concluding one way or the other. Nevertheless, there is some guidance that still allows for an objective determination. Scholars, legal minds, and entities, including the U.S. State Department, have defined terrorism as premeditated, politically motivated violence perpetrated against non-combatant targets by subnational groups or clandestine agents, usually intended to influence an audience. Violence being behavior involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone or something. Guerrilla warfare, on the other hand, which is what freedom fighters generally engage in, is a form of irregular warfare in which a group of combatants, such as paramilitary personnel or armed civilians, use military tactics including ambushes, sabotage, raids, petty warfare, hit-and-run tactics, and mobility to fight a larger and less mobile traditional military. By their very definitions, while freedom fighters use military tactics and target strictly military outfits and other symbols of state authority, terrorists deliberately use violence and target civilians. It goes without saying that any acts of violence targeting innocent civilians would be frowned upon by objective, reasonable minds that have traditionally and incessantly decried such acts. Minds such as those of the various stakeholders and international community leaders that we seek to engage and win over. When all is said and done, in the matter of Ambazonia versus La République du Cameroun, who would be deemed to have engaged in terrorism? That is the question that should guide every pronouncement and every action by Ambazonians. The question that should deter any Ambazonian, whether a leader, a fighter in the homeland, an activist, or a mere citizen, from inciting or engaging in any acts of violence, whether against military forces or ordinary citizens of La République du Cameroun. As often correctly stated by many Ambazonians, the right to self-defense is indeed a fundamental, indelible right. A right that allows anyone under attack to defend themselves using necessary, reasonable, proportionate force. Garrying of people or chopping off body parts, shooting, even of La République du Cameroun military officers when unprovoked or unattacked, targeting and attacking citizens of La République du Cameroun just for who they are, burning down or using other methods to destroy property, kidnappings for ransom or otherwise, certainly do not fall within the scope of permissible self-defense and should never be engaged in. The best litmus test for any action or reaction should perhaps be: who is the target? Is there provocation or attack? And could the action or reaction engaged in be perceived as wanton use of physical force to hurt, damage, or kill someone or something? Although the line between permissible self-defense and what could be potentially deemed violence might be hard to maintain, given the ferocious and ruthless attacks unleashed on Ambazonians, and as difficult as it is, every effort must still be made to remain mindful of the line and not to cross it, mindful of the difference between terrorism and freedom fighting, mindful of the need to remain freedom fighters. This is Sia Jimvo Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
This is Ambazonia. One nation, one soul, one people. Sacrificing, bleeding, and yes, dying if need be, until we kick the colonialists out and enthrone a government of the people in BOYO. One thing lawyers don't need to find out anymore, and no one needs to find out in any case, is just how deeply patriotic Ambazonians have become. It is the subject of a short paper wrapped around the anthem here by Lambert Mbom.
Ambazonia now lives in mouths, hearts, and souls of even children, some of them as young as 9 years, as these children in Bingo, BOYO State, in the northern zone. Who at that tender age already know which anthem they must sing and which flag they will henceforth incline before.
National anthem. Yes. 1, 2, ready, go!
The 9-year-olds wouldn't be outdone by groups of 3-year-olds, even Ambazonian toddlers who are still being breastfed and mumbling the anthem of their homeland. They and the unborn, along with Ambazonian ancestors, have one message for Biya, for Kamto, and for their heirs and sponsors, France and the United Nations. Ambazonia has reason to fall no more. Lambert Mbom, Ambazonia Calling.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. Welcome, Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta, to The Devil Unmasked.
Thanks for your legendary hospitality, Ntumfoyn.
What are we unmasking today?
Let us jointly unmask the assault on truth by Lucifer Paul Biya of the Satanic Republic of Cameroon.
Is the fact that lies are on steroids under the Biya regime evident to everyone or only to his opponents?
It's not really a partisan issue here. Lucifer Paul Biya lies as constantly and as brazenly as a used car salesman trying to close at the end of the month. Ntumfoyn, Lucifer Paul Biya is a liar-in-chief. He is a champion of broken promises.
Can we review some of the categories of the lies that Mr. Biya is fond of telling?
Do you remember when he was telling the very audience in the far north in October last year that he was going to construct a railway line for them, whereas he told the very lies 7 years back but did nothing about it? Secondly, Ntumfoyn, Bia is a liar of fabrication. Fabrication is telling others something you don't know for sure is true. Fabrications are extremely hurtful because they lead to rumors that can damage someone else's reputation. Spreading rumors is not only a lie, but also stealing other people's reputations. Thirdly, Ntumfoyn, Lucifer Bia is a bold-faced liar. A bold-faced liar is someone who tells something that everyone knows is a lie. It's simple and sometimes cute for a little child to tell a bold-faced lie about not eating any cookies, even though there is chocolate all over his or her face. As people get older, they may try to be more crafty with their cover-ups. Some people like Lucifer Bia never grow up. Let us just look at an example. Telling people that he's going to construct a Victoria deep sea port, a ring road in Bamenda and all the like, and never doing anything. In the fourth place, we know that Lucifer Bia is a liar of deception. He deceives or tries to create an impression that causes others to be misled by not telling all the facts or creating a false impression. Causing deception is a powerful and hurtful tool. It can be very subtle yet deadly. Each time a bishop is slaughtered in Cameroon, let us take this as an example. Deceptive lies are told about commissions of inquiry to investigate the cause of the death. But in the final analysis, do we ever get any results? No. And finally, Ntumfoyn, he is a compulsive liar. A compulsive liar is one who has low self-esteem and need for attention. In fact, the compulsive liar finds it all but impossible to stop. Telling the truth would be easier and better for him. For example, his inability to manage the economy in the Satanic Republic of Cameroon has always been blamed on external economic conditions.
Please indulge our listeners further. Could you give a few more examples?
Ntumfoyn, we don't need to look far away from us. When Lucifer Bia is going after his political adversaries, he lies that he is fighting corruption. When he wants to consolidate and perpetrate his eternal criminal dictatorship, he lies that he is carrying out decentralization. When he is imposing 21st century colonization and colonialism on the Amazonian people, he lies that he is defending territorial integrity. When he wants to annihilate Ambazonians from the face of the earth with the blessings of his compatriots of the French teleguided Satanic Republic of Cameroon, he lies that he is building national unity.
Where does his slogan about living together fall in the category of lies?
Ntumfoyn, in French it is called vivre ensemble. I came across this phrase during my research on French monetary imperialism in Africa, subtitled Implications for Cameroon's Foreign Policy. This phrase, living together, or vivre ensemble, is vintage Gaullism, intended to hoodwink Ambazonians. A French politician put it this way: Africa without France is like a car without a driver, and France without Africa is like a car without gas or petrol. This slogan of living together or vivre ensemble points into the mouths of dignified errand boys or dignified or glorified slaves from Ambazonia hides a brazen fact. And that fact is that the Satanic Republic of Cameroon cannot survive without Ambazonia, that accounts for at least 70% of its gross domestic product or gross national product. Let me explain further the meaning of this lie with an annoying case. In 1999, the European Union came up with the euro currency. The Central African franc zone had 4.5 trillion CFA francs. I do not mean 4.5 billion. I mean 4.5 trillion CFA francs in the French treasury. What did France do to live together? with the Francophones who owned that money. Our beloved French colonizer simply gobbled that colossal amount of money, fooling the Francophones that it was to guarantee the convertibility of their CFA colonial currency. These are lies that Mother France does not want its vassals in Francophone Africa to know. There is no doubt in my mind, Ntumfoyn, that Lucifer Paul Biya is constantly telling lies, challenging accepted reality, gaslighting, giving us alternative facts, and spreading fake news to deceive the unsuspecting folks. Do you remember the slogan coined by one of Biya's creatures that rumor comes from below, whereas truth comes from above?
How about his national integration slogan? Is it another lie?
It is a naked lie. If he knew what national integration would mean in a multinational context like Cameroon, he would have sought to appreciate and respect cultural diversity in his socio-economic and political or educational policies. Lucifer Paul Biya rather opted to flood the administration right to local level with his skilled and poorly trained evil administrators, mainly from his ethnic group, to undermine diversity. Do you forget that he sought to create the common law, to destroy the common law system by stuffing the courts with civil law judges? Do you remember how he got Francophones to destroy or ruin the education of our children in Ambazonia by the Frenchification of the education system? How would one imagine that his economically unproductive South region, with a population less than half the southern zone of Ambazonia, would have a budgetary allocation of twice the amount allocated for the northern and southern zones of Ambazonia? And the examples go on and on.
How do media outlets manage to cope with a lying telling machine like Biya?
Make no mistake, Ntumfoyn, Lucifer Paul Biya's goal is to delegitimize the media. He does this by constantly harassing media houses and journalists that do not propagate his lies. The reason is that if there is no trust in media, then there is no objective broker of facts, and then you successfully destabilize the truth. Biya has created a climate where there are no agreed upon facts and no objective truths. Truths are things that unmask this criminocracy in the Satanic Republic of Cameroon as well as in the international community.
What gain is there for the Biya regime to tell these lies? What goals is he meeting?
According to Biya, if he has a monopoly on truth, then he owns pricey real estate in people's minds and he can get them to believe everything he says. Sure, governments are always in the business of manufacturing consent, but this is different. Lucifer Paul Biya doesn't want anybody to go along with any idea or a policy or philosophy that he has not dictated for public consumption. He just wants everybody to go along with him. And as you very well know, those who seek to stabilize the truth, to get everyone to get just along with them, are called dictators.
What are some of the pointers to the goals that Biya's pandemic lies are intended to achieve?
Ntumfoyn, the mantra is simple: invade militarily and administratively, intimidate, manipulate, antagonize, ingratiate, indemnify, expropriate. In fact, the intention is to keep a stranglehold on Ambazonians to scoop gargantuan natural riches that do not exist in this chaotic Satanic Republic of Cameroon. We can thus readily understand the megalomaniacal instincts of Lucifer Paul Biya's stubborn refusal to entertain any inclusive dialogue recommended by the whole world to resolve the problem posed by his dictatorship and colonization of Ambazonia.
What is your take on the AGC spearheaded by Christian Cardinal Tumi?
Ntumfoyn, I respect the person and initiative of His Eminence Christian Cardinal Tumi to alleviate the carnage, rapings, lootings, arsons, as well as all atrocity crimes against the sovereign people of Ambazonia by the Biya gangsters. I and the Cardinal are ideologically at tangents. My simple question which I could ask the Cardinal is this. Is he convinced that Satan and Jesus Christ can live together in harmony? Where, in heaven or in hell? Can a mouse be guaranteed safety in a house with a cat? I think His Eminence should rather seek a ceasefire, the withdrawal of barbaric and murderous occupation troops, as well as the colonial evil administrative outfit from Ambazonia, and then secure a neutral arbitrator to preside over the negotiations in a neutral country. Colluding with Lucifer Paul Biya's lies violates what Pope Francis has decried. That is, telling lies, in the words of the Holy Father, is terrorism. My conclusion from the pronouncement of the Holy Pontiff is that siding with a terrorist like Lucifer Paul Biya because of physical survival is the morality of a thug.
What can the international community do to free itself from being lied to so much by Mr. Biya?
All I can say to the international community, Ntumfoyn, is that any negotiations concerning the future of Amazonia must rethink the process of a fundamental systemic change based on United Nations Resolution 1514, that is compelling the total independence for that sovereign territory.
What is your brief message to Ambazonians this week?
I would like to state here, Ntumfoyn, that what Ambazonians are going through today is a pattern of French foreign policy during the period of slave trade and slavery in the 17th century. It is intended to perpetuate sociocultural destruction, political patronage, the divide and rule dogma, brutality and intolerance against Ambalanders. Ambalanders should therefore live in hope. In fact, we need an Ambazonian hope that moves Ambazonians not only to imagine a different future of independence, but to individually and collectively act on that hope to bring it to fruition practically. Let them resist the one who claims to be an angel, but performs the work of the devil.
Yeah, we could listen to this litany of lies all the way to the finish, but I think we run out of time, as we do all the time. But thank you very much, Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta, for unmasking the devil here. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you for our conversation, Ntumfoyn.
So get on now on the train, everybody. Get on now on the train. Mothers, fathers, get on now on the train. Children, get on now on the train. Sister, brothers, get on now on the train. Husbands, wives too, get on now on the train. Oh, Abba, Father, bless us. Oh, Jesus Christus, guide us. Oh, Holy Spirit, lead us on the restoration journey of our liberty. So, restoration train is our freedom train.
Anyone who's been following the news this week knows that the French are in trouble, some big financial trouble, and it's being caused by the Italians. No, it's being caused by the French, revealed by the Italians. And the world is getting reminded one more time. Here is the monk from Yubali Kumato.
The current crisis in the Cameroons is an inevitable fallout of France-Afrique policies that impact citizens of British Southern Cameroons in fundamental and sometimes permanent ways. But the highlight of this third week of January 2019 on the subject of France-Afrique came out of Italy. On Sunday, January 20, speaking in Italy's Abruzzo region, Luigi Di Maio, Italy's deputy prime minister, called on the European Union to impose sanctions on France for its policies in Africa. If today we still have people leaving Africa, it is due to several European countries, first of all France, that didn't finish colonizing Africa. There are dozens of African countries where France is printing a currency of its own, the franc of the colonies, and with that currency, French debt is financed. Therefore, I stopped being hypocritical by talking just about the effects, and I decided to start talking about the causes. The European Union should sanction all those countries like France that are impoverishing African countries and obliging those people to live. The place for African people is Africa, not at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. This triggered a response from France. On Monday, January 21, 2019, France summoned Italian Ambassador Teresa Castaldo. Di Maio's comments were described as hostile and without cause. And then on Wednesday, January 23, 2019, France's Europe Minister Nathalie Loiseau said, "Attacks by Italian politicians on France's leadership do nothing to help the Italian people and have no effect on French politics." However, Di Maio's comments were echoed by Giorgio Meloni, leader of the Brothers of Italy, Fratelli d'Italia, a national conservative political party in Italy. In this TV interview, she holds up the picture of what looks like a child working in a mine in Burkina Faso. She holds up this picture to the audience as she recites, almost word for word, what the Italian Deputy Prime Minister said about how France has kept Africa underdeveloped, from Algeria to Madagascar, from Djibouti to Dakar.
Questo è un bambino che lavora in una miniera d'oro in Burkina Faso. Il Burkina Faso è una delle nazioni più povere del mondo. Per il Burkina Faso, che ha l'oro, la Francia stampa moneta coloniale. In cambio pretende che finiscano nelle casse del tesoro francese il 50% di tutto quello che il Burkina Faso esporta. L'oro che questo bambino si infila in un cunicolo per tirare fuori finisce per lo più nelle casse dello Stato francese. Allora la soluzione non è prendere gli africani e spostarli in Europa. La soluzione è liberare l'Africa da certi europei che la sfruttano e consentire a queste persone di vivere di quello che hanno. E io voglio andare in Europa a parlare di questo. Se gli italiani ci danno un po' d'aiuto, il 26 maggio ci mandano in Europa, io voglio dire basta a questo.
And then there was Ambazonia, the state of British Southern Cameroons that refused to melt in the cauldron of France-Afrique. The hope is that Italy has triggered a last requiem to put France-Afrique to rest. The people of Ambazonia have work to do. This is the monk in Ibalikumato for Ambazonia Calling.
Stay tuned. Ambazonia Calling will be right back with more news, analysis, commentary, opinion, and editorials. The number 2 Italian government official has made this issue of the CFA franc her business, her personal business. And she's going after the French big time and saying some stuff that we cannot exactly understand because we don't speak Italian. Even if for now I call myself Herbertito instead of Herbert. Just so much love for these Italians doing the right thing. This is exactly the moment when you are delighted that the Ambazonians that speak all languages, there's one to interpret exactly what the Italian number 2 has been saying in Italian. On her very first assignment on Ambazonia Calling, here is Elizabeth Tabebison from out of Rome, Italy.
If we want to continue discussing the effects, let's speak first of the strategy that leads to so many deaths at sea and to whose families I extend my condolences. We have to speak of the causes. If people are fleeing from Africa, it is because some European countries like France have not put an end to their colonization of Africa. There are at least 10 African countries for whom France means their currency, France mints this currency and uses proceeds from it to finance their public debts. Without African colonies, France would have been ranked the 15th world economic power instead of being ranked among the top world economies thanks to its exploitation in Africa. I refuse to be a hypocrite like others who are only discussing the effects. I have decided to speak exclusively of the causes. The European Union has to sanction all the countries like France which are abusing Africa, reducing it to the level of poverty, forcing Africans to flee the misery in their countries. The place for Africans is Africa, not at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, where so many of them drown. If we want to stop the perilous migration, let us begin by confronting the root causes. Let's confront these causes within the European Union. Italy will make itself heard. For this reason, in the next weeks, there will be parliamentary initiative of the Five Stars Party, which on behalf of the Italian government and the European Union will use its diplomatic mission to call on the United Nations to initiate sanctions against those countries that have not stopped colonizing Africa. The tragedy unfolding on the Mediterranean Sea is a fault of colonial action by those countries involved in preaching false morals, like Macron, who first wants to be seen as morally upright, yet is financing its public debts by minting a currency for Africa. This is Elizabeth Etta Bisson from Rome for Ambazonian Calling.
With my apologies, Elizabeth, for getting your name wrong in the introduction there. It is Elizabeth Etta Bisson, not Tabe Bisson. My bad.
Restoration, restoration, restoration train is going to the borders.
Ntumfoyn.
Restoration train is going straight to Kumba.
And to Kumbo.
Restoration train is going on to Bali.
And to Mamfe.
Restoration train is going to Victoria.
And to whom?
Restoration train is going to Muyuka.
And to Ekok.
We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfuka of the Week. Veronique Vetimfe is here with our Queens and Kings of Foolish for the week.
We saw videos of courageous citizens of next-door colonial Cameroon take to the streets on Saturday. We saw them face down riot police. We saw them lost in the smoke of tear gas. We saw some of the bravest acts by a woman living anywhere in the world in the person of barrister Michelle Ndoki, who, along with journalist Celestine Germain, were intentionally targeted and shot at twice on the legs and thighs by evil soldiers of Paul Biya. The scenes from the street of Yaoundé, Douala and Bafoussam, among other towns in neighboring La République, prove that our neighbors can carry their own water. They do not need Ambazonians to fight their fight for them. Contrary to those like Dr. David Makongo, who this week was campaigning for Ambazonians to stick their necks out again and take bullets for the liberation of the colonizing republic next door. For even contemplating that Ambazonians should be involved with the fight of a people who have shown so clearly that we are two and divisible, by suggesting that we should fight as if we are citizens of the one and indivisible republic. Dr. David Makongo is this week's third place finisher for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week.
Nyamfuka them all.
Finishing in the position of runners-up are all those Ambazonians, civilians, or members of armed groups who are willingly or unwittingly collaborating with the colonial regime of Yaoundé, notably those offering information to wannabe spy, the shit no wipe last Nyamfuka for life, Franklin Jume. Any Ambazonian who accepts or entertains a phone call with this scum of the earth, anyone who provides any tips or information of any value to this shit-eating gong dog called Franklin Jume, any Ambazonian who jeopardizes the safety of our people and the success of our revolution by talking to this tenant of Nyamfuka, Hall of Infamy, automatically makes themselves one of the runners-up of this week's Crown of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week.
Nyamfuka them all.
The winner of the crown this week is one of those who collected money during the fundraising event that closed the Unity Rally in Washington, D.C. last year. As Ambazonians will recall, after that fundraiser, Chris Anu went to town with a bunch of lies, accusing certain leaders of asking that the money be dished out to benefit them. The names of leaders like John Ba Akuro were dragged in the mud, with claims that he had borrowed money in anticipation of receiving his share of the booty. This bunch of lies, as anyone can recall, contributed enormously to destroying the newfound unity. One person who facilitated this division by knowing everything yet refusing to speak up is Dr. Aaron Mancho. He was one of the leaders authorized to collect checks during the fundraiser. He paid all the checks collected into an account of the IG group, following instructions from Comrade Sako Ikome. He allowed the names of groups and leaders to be dragged in the mud. This week, Dr. Mancho finally came clean. He confessed to the satanic role he played in letting the falsehoods fester for so long, and in the process became the unenviable winner of this week's Crown of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week.
Nyamfuka them all.
This is Veronique Vetimfe for Ambazonia Calling.
Nyamfuka them all.
Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideas, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love. For in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsels of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive Him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations.
Our studio delivery there of the Desiderata from Prince Ajwa the best sound engineer on earth, working where else? Here at Ambazonia Calling. We're turning now to the second part of our series on nonviolence, and before we roll it, just important for us to reiterate again that we don't do this series on nonviolence because we are opposed to self-defense. It is because we are for mobilization of our people as soon as the guns go quiet to make sure that we stay the momentum that leads us to recognition and total independence. We don't want to be fooled by a peace deal, by any negotiations, by any mediation. Our people must stay fully mobilized. Here to open the series is Tanya Jude Agwa Ozugen.
The Ambazonia Restoration Quest is premised on peaceful, diplomatic, and non-violent approaches. It is also the one proven route by which independence has been achieved at the least cost in human lives and infrastructure destroyed. Diplomacy is also the only way by which nations are recognized. This is the one truth that needs to be defended at all times in this revolution. As much as our claim to independence, self-government, and self-determination are founded on and backed by international law, there has been no shortage of reminders that deviation from our non-violent mantra will gravely tarnish our brand and attract a less than acceptable labeling of our noble cause. So far, to the chagrin of the Biya regime, Ambazonians have been largely faithful to the Da Vinci Code of our struggle. Ambazonians should not waver, no matter the temptation. Lucifer Biya's attempt to sully our international image has fallen flat on its face so far, steering clear of human rights violations and refusing to participate in atrocity crimes and war crimes, shunning calls to gary people's limb, to kidnap, torture, or extort must remain the best course of action for all groups, including those with self-defense units. Taking action that is in violation of these principles and laws can only be detrimental to the entire restoration quest. Ambazonia Calling brought you the story of the economic and financial asphyxiation of the CDC through strikes, boycotts, and other forms of civil disobedience as proof, if any more was needed, that cohesive non-violent disruption of the social, economic, and political order can work. Ambazonians must continue to intensify such civil disobedient tactics and sustain other acts of protest, non-cooperation, and refusal to grant consent to be governed by the colonizer. Legitimate self-defense is an instrument of last resort, used violently, as its name suggests, only to protect oneself from deadly force. While peaceful, diplomatic, and non-violent approaches may take time, it trumps all other approaches as not only the key, but also the most certain path to recognition. This is Jude Agwa Ozugen from Ambazonia Calling.
If there's only one convention you should attend this year,
it's a new year.
It is the Convention.
Another year for us to share.
The 15th annual FAKO Convention is holding in Phoenix, Arizona, from the 19th to the 23rd of June 2019.
USA, yeah.
Buy your ticket, book your hotel room before it's too late. Everyone is going to Arizona.
America, yibala koma, yamle.
Come to my people and be spoiled. Come and help us develop the Palace, develop the Kingdom. Come to the happiest people on earth. Come and have a great Njang time. The sounds, rhythm, and music of my people just swept me there away to beautiful Come, and I was lost for a moment. But back to our series on nonviolence, and here's Divine Anjay to explain to us why La République du Cameroun, knowing they could not win a diplomatic or legal battle, decided to wage war against Amazonia.
It is not an accident that the Biya regime chose to declare war on Ambazonia. The colonizers have always been begging for a war. The main reason for that approach is that the Biya regime, like Nigeria in the Bakassi Peninsula case, did not see itself winning any peaceful, legal, diplomatic, or non-violent battles. Angered by the genocidal violence and disenchanted by the world doing little to nothing in denouncing the colonizers for crimes against humanity, some Ambazonian groups eventually took up arms in self-defense. Here is non-violence advocate and documentary filmmaker Julia Bacha on how the lack of media and international attention to non-violent campaigners eventually pushes campaigners into thinking they need violence to make their point.
This silence carries profound consequences for the likelihood that nonviolence can grow or even survive. Violent resistance and nonviolent resistance share one very important thing in common. They are both a form of theater, seeking an audience to their cause. If violent actors are the only ones constantly getting front page cover and attracting international attention, it becomes very hard for nonviolent leaders to make the case to their communities that civil disobedience is a viable option in addressing their plight.
As laudable as self-defense is, exercising it gave the Biya regime the license it always wanted to slaughter any Ambazonian and claim they were a combatant. Ambazonia Calling has learned that revolted by the bloodshed and keen to bring it to an end, the international community is bent on applying tactics used in the Middle East to advance non-violent campaigns. Using the violence/war it has started, the colonizer has its biggest supporter, France, sitting over the matter before the UN Security Council, where the veto power of Paris is now the single biggest trump card the Biya regime could ever hope for. Ambazonians can reverse this slippage by reverting to the force of argument, while still not renouncing their commitment to achieve independence. It is the single most lethal weapon Ambazonians must deploy and redeploy over and over again. This is Divine Angie for Ambazonia Calling.
This is Ambazonia. One nation, one soul, one people. Sacrificing, bleeding, and yes, dying if need be, until we kick the colonialists out and enthrone a government of the people in BOYO. The belief is widespread that violence is needed to get to independence and that violence works better than non-violence. Studies into this area have proven just how off these perceptions are. Here is MANYU.
One of the world's best-known converts from violence to nonviolence is university professor and TED Talk star Erica Chenoweth. She is one of those who so believed in violence that she thought, as many do today in Ambazonia, that power flows exclusively from the barrel of a gun.
Well, back then I bought into the idea that power flows from the barrel of a gun. In a society that celebrates battlefield heroes on national holidays, I guess it was natural to grow up believing that violence and courage are one and the same, and that true victories cannot come without bloodshed on both sides.
She once considered herself and all apostles of nonviolence as extremely naive.
And what I would have said was that although it was tragic, it was logical in such situations for people to use violence to seek their change.
That was then. She was converted into nonviolence in the strength of peaceful civil resistance. No one advocating nonviolence in Ambazonia today will not be laughed to the face and ridiculed.
Some of you are thinking, is this person insane? I watch the news and I see protesters getting shot at all the time. And it's true. Sometimes crackdowns do happen. But even in those cases, the nonviolent campaigns were outperforming the violent ones by 2 to 1.
The truth is that the reason violence does not work in favor of the colonized is that the colonizer is generally more prepared and is often begging for violence. In the case of Paul Biya, his regime has been begging for a war of national unity and he has no intention to hold back on violence. He seems keen to prove that he is, indeed, the Hitler of Africa. It makes matters worse to know that the French, a Security Council member state, and the United Nations bureaucracy led by Antonio Guterres are either in favor or have decided to look the other way. No matter how vexed Ambazonians are by the Biya colonialists using violence to massacre our people, they must realize that the colonizers want to engage in violence because that is the only strategy they can win employing. This is Anne Berinoy for Ambazonia Calling.
Non-violent scholars Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stephan put out a groundbreaking study on why nonviolence works. Tanya Eseme helps us review some of the most outstanding findings.
Too many Ambazonians are exactly where these co-authors were before their study was finalized.
So, I and many others like me had ignored the millions of people worldwide who were skillfully using civil resistance in favor of studying just things that blow up. I collected data on all major nonviolent and violent campaigns for the overthrow of a government or territorial liberation since 1900. The data cover the entire world and consist of every known case where there were at least 1,000 observed participants. This is hundreds of cases. Then I analyzed the data, and the results blew me away.
According to these authors, the world's most authoritative scholars on the subject, nonviolent movements are twice as likely to succeed.
From 1900 to 2006, nonviolent campaigns worldwide were twice as likely to succeed outright as violent insurgencies. And there's more. This trend has been increasing over time, so that in the last 50 years, nonviolent campaigns are becoming increasingly successful and common, whereas violent insurgencies are becoming increasingly rare and unsuccessful.
Ambazonians may not be ready for this other fact. Research has proven that even when the oppressor uses more violence, the peaceful movements are more likely to succeed.
This is true even in those extremely brutal authoritarian conditions where I expected nonviolent resistance to fail.
Erica Chenoweth has an explanation for why nonviolent approaches succeed and what percentage of people are needed to be on board for the nonviolence approach to succeed.
Researchers used to say that no government could survive if just 5% of its population rose up against it. Our data show that the number may be lower than that. No single campaigns failed during that time period after they had achieved the active and sustained participation of just 3.5% of the population. And lots of them succeeded with far fewer than that.
Listen to that again, Ambazonians. We only need 3.5% of you to be involved in the nonviolent campaigns for us to succeed. To be clear, Ambazonians will still win even if we do not mobilize a majority of our people.
Every single campaign that surpassed that 3.5% was a nonviolent one.
This low participation rate leading to success only applies to nonviolence approaches. This is Tanya Eseme for Ambazonia Calling.
If there's only one convention you should attend this year,
it's a new year.
It is the COM convention.
Another year for us to share.
The 15th annual FAKO convention is holding in Phoenix, Arizona from the 19th to the 23rd of June 2019.
USA, yeah.
Buy your ticket, book your hotel room before it's too late. Everyone is going to Arizona.
America, yibala koma, yamle.
Come to my people and be spoiled. Come and help us develop the COM Palace, develop the COM Kingdom. Come to the happiest people on earth. Come and have a great Njang time. Perhaps the single most important byproduct of employing non-violent means is the more stable, more democratic, more peaceful society that is built through non-violent movement. Here is Ayuk Nelson.
That in both the short and longer term, civil resistance tends to leave behind societies in which people can live more freely and more peaceably together. Countries in which people wage nonviolent struggle were way more likely to emerge with democratic institutions than countries in which they wage violent struggle. And those countries with nonviolent campaigns were 15% less likely to relapse into civil war.
Only nonviolent approaches bring out people in mass numbers.
In fact, the nonviolent campaigns were on average 4 times larger than the average violent campaigns. And they were often much more inclusive and representative in terms of gender, age, race, political party, class, and the urban-rural distinction.
Every Ambazonian can agree that this is indeed the case. Think of how many more Amazonians were directly involved with participating in this revolution back on the 22nd of September 2017, and again on the 1st of October 2017, when the elderly, the physically challenged, and the children joined in peaceful demonstrations versus the very small numbers currently involved or willing to be involved. Co-authors Maria and Erica explain why so many more people join non-violent movements while few have space to participate in violent campaigns. Overall, Ambazonians must recognize that they did not declare war and they were not prepared and still are not prepared and cannot throw away the advantage they hold against the colonizers by sticking with the non-violent approach. That does not obviously mean giving up the right to self-defense. This is Ayuk Nelson Ayuk for Ambazonia Calling.
Ayuk Nelson there on his first assignment for Ambazonia Calling. For all those of you out there, especially young Ambazonians who are interested in joining our team of researchers and young reporters, please contact us. Write to ambercalling@yahoo.com. Well, there is not a doubt in my mind that this is, so far, the most entertaining speech of the year 2019.
Of secondary education, Minister of Budget Education, Minister of Seafood and Fiscal Education, Governor No Reason, Senior Divisional Officer Bui Division, Diho Kimbo, Diho Jajiri. I get them place on this occasion for make them welcome for SDO in this ceremony. Masa SDO, Minister of the date and present. Fifol, President Fortibia Etokam, Jirinkam, Fapi Bone water, Kirin water. Fifol, for this Aldoret, Inoba Jirinkam Kirin water. Now, water what day, Mama, you go Diring. Debo go Dirinka water what day. Ado Dirinkam water what day. Booking all, Dirinkam what day. Tomorrow, Bele, don't sit up for Kirai. All booking go force, all, see who all, you could let like a cow, you get them force. Masamuni sita, Biringham water, 40 beer Josina, 40 beer water man, body go Diring. Masamuni sita. Da ara yesterday for all of people in Nova Sabi Girama. Josina is Sabi book Simon Igo Sabi Girama. 40 beer itoka. Chirena old booking debo na Igo Sabi book. Ado inoba get am tongue. Now you go tie am that tone, you don't build no copy, you go bring a sister, you go sister booking Aldo. All booking debo I don't bring up. Long we live, continue 40 beer, lovely Cameroon, lovely Aldo, lovely all population.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Because you have your army of occupation out in West Cameroon, you believe that when the people will rise, even if you took the whole of the French army and added to yours, you will never bring them down.
And I call on all Cameroon soldiers to lay down their arms within Ambazonia and to turn their arms against the very system that has made them slaves in the land of their birth.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, I am not a prophet. The last of the prophets was John the Baptist. He's gone. The Christ came. But here's a prophecy I have for you. I can see the collapse of your regime, and I can tell you that today. And I'm not TB Joshua, and I'm not one of the prophets. It's just simple Joshua. The world is coming apart. It's coming apart all around you. Things are falling apart, even as you watch. Did you see the entertainment from Paris? The boys were on fire. They moved into what you thought was your house, the people's house. They took it over, Joshua. They tore down your portrait. They put it in the trash. Just like that. The yellow vests are getting to you, Joshua. Ask your grandson, Manu Macron, how it feels to be under the threat of the yellow vest. Never good at all. These guys, they call themselves the anti-sardinas. They don't like the elite from the Republic of Bread and Sardine. And they don't like any bribes. They are not willing to take any. And you hear their Grand Chief, the professor, and he said from Douala, it's game on. It's game on, Joshua. This time around, they're not turning back. You got the soldiers out, and they did a good job. But they touched the wrong people. Did you see Michelle Ndoki? That is Rosa Parks on steroids. You can't find that kind of iron lady, even if you were looking into Margaret Thatcher's heart. Joshua, they say this is going to be every month. I'm afraid they're not going home. Did you see the guys at Post Central? I thought you had Angola under control. What happened to Village Electoral? What happened to all the Isingan? What happened to all the people that support you? I tell you, this is a prophecy. It comes from one who is not a prophet. But, you know, from time to time, I do some TB Joshuaing. It's just fun. Look, Joshua, I was looking around the other day. I was trying to find out where you might want to go. But, you know, the hotel in Geneva, you can't even go there. I was thinking about Gabon, but you know, your young friend is not too well. He is somewhere in a hospital. Some people say he's in between the mortuary and the hospital. I don't wish him dead. But, you know, life is life. Think about Equatorial Guinea. That's where Yaya Jammeh went to. Might be a good place. Or Dakar. You know, Dakar. That's where Hijo went to. That's a great place. Isenabre is also there. You will be in great company. And also, the graveyard is ready. It's not too far away. And, you know, you might want to go and weed Hijo's grave because just maybe, you're going to be buried there. And then the new BI is going to say to himself, the family has to bring back the remains. You know, due to the dead, what you would want to be done to your corpse. Well, Joshua, poor boy, it's a tough end of reign, Joshua. Not now. You got all those children to raise. Brenda is still young. She's still going to Enam. You're still waiting for the opportunity to appoint her the general manager of Enam. And you're still waiting. Frank is not ready to become president. Maybe Chantal is. Maybe she runs the country. You know, she makes the appointments. And I saw the prime minister. The chiefs from LEBIALEM apparently went to see him. He wants to be the fun of funds. Can you imagine? That's how rivalry starts. This is how these people's shoulders grow above their heads. And then they end up like Marafa in jail, writing tons of letters, screaming about their innocence. We wonder why they just found out that you were evil and that you were going to end up throwing them in jail. I mean, everyone who is serving now knows where they're ending up. For all the Ambazonians, they're going to be IDPs, like, you know, Sugar Daddy Yang and all the others. As for the citizens of Bread and Sardine, you just end up in quarter whatever in Kondengi, and life goes on. You know, finally you had some shame this week. That was a good job you did, listening to the letter, listening to our report on ZED and on the need to act. That was smart, because going to the ICC is the other option. When Bagbo comes out of jail, they need someone there to fill the place. You know, jails have to be warm. By the way, Bemba and Charles Taylor, they need company. Joshua, it's bad to be where you are now. And Kamto is coming for you. That's so bad. And Ambazonia is gone. What a sad end of reign. I mean, couldn't you do what Ahijo did? Pass the shit to someone else? You stingy fellow, you couldn't think of anyone good enough to take over after 6 terms. There's no one to save you, Joshua, not even yourself. Burn the country down, after all. Après moi, le déluge. You have been listening to Ambazonia Calling. We came to you from our studios here in Washington, D.C. Our producers today, Jeff McCoy, Logistics, Joe Costa, and Crystal Cunningham. Our music is from Ken Wanaku, the monk, from Balikumato Vazekov himself, from William Ford, an Amber music star of blessed memory, from Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org. and from Prince Ajualem of Ajam, Sonicatron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at missionstribune.com, at compassfreepress.com, and at africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another date. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the good fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.